There would be no better way to kick off that moment than to bring a former law enforcement officer who is now a member of Congress. Joining us right now, Texas Congressman Troy Nehls, who, by the way, is the author of a great book, too, The Borderless by Design, the Democrats' Plan for One-Party Rule and How It Aids and Abets America's Enemies from Soros and Davos. A really great book. Congressman, congratulations on the book. Congratulations on your service in law enforcement. Today was a special day seeing all those uniforms on Capitol Hill.
Thank you, John and Amanda. It's good to be with you. Yes, you see it every year. It's an annual thing. Yesterday, when I walked around, you saw all these wonderful law enforcement officers in their uniform playing the bagpipes. You've seen the motorcycles. You've seen the horses. So the sad part about it is out on the mall, there are hundreds of people, hundreds of law enforcement officers and their family reading the names of all the officers that have given their lives in service to their country and their community. And it's sad because they're reading way too many names. But this is what happens when you have the defund the police movement. The left is to blame for all of this. And George Soros, you're one of those evil villains that do not support law enforcement, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yes, sir. You know, as John and I talk to law enforcement officials across the country, whether it's Border Patrol or police officers or people in sheriff's departments, the one thing I hear is that they feel like they are hamstrung. And it starts at the top with the Biden administration, their attitude toward law enforcement. Is that what you're hearing on the ground? Because we've got an election in November and there could be new leadership.
I do. It's very frustrating. We know the party that supports law enforcement, and the officers that I've spoken to for the past several months, they understand that the Republican Party, the greatest president in my lifetime, Donald J. Trump, I mean, you see him in all the pictures at his rallies, thanking law enforcement for protecting him while he's in those cities, in those municipalities. They know who supports them. They know, the officers know, it was the left that started the defund the police movement. All this started because of the 2020 riots. And you have these liberal mayors in these large cities that have cut the budgets by tens of millions of dollars and even upwards of $1 billion in New York. So now what do you have? What do you have as a result? You have more crime. And then you have the George Soros funded DAs, and there's 75 of them, that when an officer is getting assaulted or getting hurt, they let the criminals out. These DAs are releasing criminals when they should be behind bars. But the American people are paying attention, and Donald Trump's going to be the 47th president.
Yeah, all the polling clearly tilting in that direction right now. I think people are just fed up with the lack of respect for institutions. I want to talk about the border. You were one of the first people to educate us, not just that the border was being opened up, but more importantly, what the strategy and motive of the Democrats and liberals were. And that was to hijack congressional apportionment and tax dollars so that illegal aliens could stack the decks in blue cities and blue states. And two, of course, to open the door to non-citizen voting. Last week, your colleagues and you voted out two very important pieces of legislation that really reversed the possibility of what the Democrats are doing. How important was that moment for Congress to vote for citizenship and voting and a citizenship question on the census?
Well, to me, this is just common sense, isn't it? I mean, why in America, where in our Constitution does it say if you could just, anybody can come in here willy-nilly and start voting in our election? So it's sad that we have to take those types of actions here in Congress. But if you're not a U.S. citizen, you should not be allowed to vote in our elections. But the Democrats, they don't care. They don't care. They like rigging elections, and we know they've rigged elections for decades. I talk about it in my book. And they want these millions of people that they're allowing to pour through our southern border. They want them to vote in elections. They want these individuals counted in the census, obviously, so they can control Congress. It's shameful what they're doing. But again, the average mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, the average person sitting at home that's hearing this, they're saying, really, they want non-citizens to vote in our elections? They're saying, we're not buying this. This is un-American. It's America last. And it's going to cost them the election. The southern border, the crime, some of these silly far left nut job policies that they're coming up with, it's going to cost them the election.
Yeah, that's right.
Sir, speaking of protecting this country and putting this country first, I wanted to ask you about a bill that you introduced, the Spend It at Home Act. Taxpayers could choose whether they wanted their federal income taxes to go for domestic or international purposes. I have a feeling that more Americans would choose domestic issues, but how exactly would this work? You just check a box?
Yeah, well, I think, when you look at what we did here a couple of weeks ago with sending $95 billion of foreign aid, supplemental aid packages to everybody, but we're not going to send a nickel to our southern border. I think it was $300 million to help secure Ukraine's border. I should even be smiling like this because I'm madder than hell about it. And I voted no on all of them. I voted no on every single supplemental aid package because we have done nothing at our southern border. So I just said, you know how you put Congress on notice and this bloated Washington bureaucracy up here? Let's ask the American taxpayer that's paying their federal taxes. Let's ask them where they would like to see their hard-earned money spent, domestically or internationally. And then I give the IRS a year. At the end of the year, the calendar year, you provide us the numbers and show us how does the average taxpayer feel where their tax dollars are going. Would they like it spent here or internationally? And I'm telling you, we got a crisis on every corner in this country. Our aging infrastructure, whether it's crime, whether it's mental health, whether it's the southern border, inflation. Why aren't we spending that money here and putting the American people first?
Yeah, that's such a common sense thing. I see a lot of heads probably nodding in our audience in agreement with you. Yeah, I want to go back to the border again because your ability to educate the American people is like few in Congress. A year ago, you passed the strongest border security package in the history of this country. Chuck Schumer grabbed it and took it hostage. It's holding it in some basement hole in the Senate. It's not getting out there. But you had another incredibly painful moment in Texas where a previously deported illegal alien was just charged in connection with the death of a 3-month-old baby. These stories keep piling up. Why doesn't the Senate care enough to do something?
Well, because the Senate realizes that Joe Biden, this is his strategy, and I think Chuck Schumer and them are going to support his strategy because if Chuck Schumer wanted to secure the southern border, he would have at least put H.R. 2 in front of the Senate for a vote, but he chose not to because it's all by design. I don't think this administration and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats care too much about the American people and their safety, because if they did and they were paying attention, that baby would be alive today. Blake and Riley would be alive today, and all of the other crimes that are being committed by these illegals, these bad hombres that are being invited, that have been invited by this administration through our southern border, because the long game is for this administration is amnesty for everybody and citizenship. And if eventually you offer citizenship to the tens of millions of people that are here illegally, it's over for the Republican Party. It's one party rule forever. And I detail all of this in my new book, Borderless by Design. It's all by design, folks. It's not by accident. It's by design.
Yeah. And you were one of the first to really educate the country of the motives. All of your colleagues in Congress have caught up to those big thoughts now. And of course, congratulations on the book. A lot more Americans going to be educated. So good to have you on the show today.
Thank you. God bless you both.